G'day guys, welcome back to the Backyard Workshop DIY, coming to you from Timbercon's YouTube channel this time. And what I'm going to be doing today is talking to you a bit about my journey into wood turning. Now, I am by no means an expert and I have no formal training. Everything I've done is self-taught, or like many of you right now, sitting down watching YouTube and picking people's brains through these sort of platforms. But what I want to do is show you some simple things that I do to be able to get things off my lathe. I started in the lockdowns of 2020 as something to support my own mental health, and I fell in love with it. This is the very first thing that ever came off a lathe that I did. Look at it now, and it's blown out, and it's got holes and cracks and things like that in it, but I keep that to remind me. But today what we're going to do is we're going to make a little bowl out of this little bit of chamfer laurel. And so to begin with, first things first, we're going to attach a base plate to it so I can get it onto the lathe, and then we can cut a tenon to be able to use a set of jaws to flip it around and hold it. So let's get started. So there we go guys, attached. So now I can sit that on the lathe. I'm going to cut around this edge here so we can flip it around and put in a set of jaws. Let's jump over and have a look. So let's first move that out of the way. Then that base plate, screw on there for us. I'm going to do up these little grub screws just to make sure it's not going anywhere. Bring our tailstock in, lock that in place, loosen that, make sure we've got nice pressure there. Now, if you're feeling more confident, I could have just wedged this between a spurred center and my live center, but especially if you're starting out, always a bit safer to make sure you've got some proper fixings there.
Now at this stage, I always like to let it run for a little bit, just make sure I'm clearing my tool rest, everything's balanced and everything's attached before I put a tool anywhere near it. So as I said, main focus right now is cutting a tenon on this, what will be eventually the bottom of the bowl, so I can use the 4-jaw chuck to hold it steady in place while I hollow out the center of the bowl. Just making sure I check that I don't go too small in diameter, but also making sure there's enough meat, enough depth on that tenon to sit in the jaws.
Okay guys, so what we've done is we've created a little tenon there. It's going to be able to sit in our jawed chuck to hold our work in here while we hollow out this side and get our general shape going. Now, before we get this onto the chuck and jump back over to the lathe, if you're keen on what's going on, make sure you hit subscribe here on the Timbercon channel, but also jump over to my channel here on YouTube and over on Instagram or anywhere you follow me, and that's the Backyard Workshop DIY, to make sure you're not missing out on any content. Let's jump back into this though. Fit in there nicely. Okay, so come over to our jaws, tighten it up. Means, well, I've got the live center I can use, and also free spin. But we are going to use the live center just till we get some round edges on this block.
Starting off with a roughing gouge, just making sure I'm taking really light passes. Like with all turning, we're not trying to take heaps in one hit. Also making sure that tool rest is sitting nice and close to my workpiece to make sure it stays nice and safe.
So that little bump means we're not flat yet. Not round yet, sorry. So we're getting real close at these little flat spots.
Because it's not fully round yet, time to do some more passes and bring it into that round I need.
And we are. So now, this will be the bottom of the bowl, this will be the top of the bowl. So I need to start thinking, that is cool. Start thinking about some shape. When I bring this bottom in in a fair bit, but I can do that at the other end of this process when I'm using a thing called the set of cold jaws, which we'll have a play with. Now, a bit of safety, something. You're never coming in this side because it's going to throw us over like that, see? And this side wants to pin us down on the rest.
So now, just starting to hollow out this bowl, I'm going straight at it with a bowl gouge. Some people might choose to use a force bit or a spade bit to drill out to begin with. Really important you keep moving that tool rest so it's nice and close to that timber. Now, before I flip this around and start really worrying about my shape, I want to make sure I've got the inside of my bowl sanded, ready to go. Now I flip the bowl around and I'm using what's called a cold jaws now to hold it from the top side of the bowl. What they let me do is finish the shaping, but it also lets me hold it nice and tight while I get out the flush cut saw and I cut that tenon off to really get us to that point where we are nearly finished. Also holds things nicely so I can sand to the bottom of the bowl.
Okay, so we're done on the lathe, it's all sanded, feels really good. Now my favourite part of it, adding a little bit of finish to make it really pop. Just going to use some Walrus oil here. See if we can have a look at that as we go. So there you have it, guys. That's my process for turning up a little bowl on the lathe. All up, a couple of hours, and I'm pretty happy with that end product if I do say so myself. So if you're someone who's thought about getting it turning but has pushback, don't. I know I waited way too long. Jump in. I'm sure you'll fall in love with it the same as I have. Shout out to the legends over at Timbecon for hosting this video. Make sure if you've enjoyed it, you hit that subscribe button. But also don't forget, jump over to my channel, the Backyard Workshop DIY, both here, Instagram, anywhere you follow me. And make sure you're subscribed there so you don't miss out on any of my content. And as always, have a good one, guys.
Thanks again for watching, guys. Now what you should do is watch one of the videos that's on the screen now, because they're what YouTube recommend you should watch next.